You've written everybody's story, so everybody's going to see.
You can do it, Gabby.
Kate, it's always so lovely to see you.
You too.
I don't know how I'm going to talk about this film, though. It's Mike Leigh. It's you, though. This is very you. You directed it, produced it, you star in it, your son wrote it, but it feels so real.
I think as well, it feels very true of England. It feels very British, and I think Helen Mirren playing the title role of June, you know, for me, she's almost the backbone of Britain in so many ways, and I think we all admire her and look up to her, and she's such a constant, and she's so stoic and brilliant. And when she said yes to playing this part, I actually couldn't believe it, because I'd had a telephone conversation with her and explained what the story was about. And she said, now I do need to stop you. She said, I do have 2 personal rules. I don't ever want to play someone with dementia, and I don't want to play somebody who has cancer. And I said, okay, that's fine. I totally understand. Don't you worry. And she said, but send it to me anyway. And I thought, oh, blimey. And she read the script, and a week later she said, I am going to break my rule. I would love to support you. And I was just so moved by that decision that she had taken, because it was very hard for her, very emotional for all of us. But I think knowing that she was going to be surrounded by this incredible ensemble cast of people who all said yes. I mean, Gabby, we couldn't believe Tim Spall, Toni Collette, Andrea Riseborough, Johnny Flynn said yes. They were like our wish list of people.
What a team of
Unbelievable
people.
Team. And you know, the sense of humour that they all brought to it, and the joy, and the sort of intention of good grace with which we really tried to put this film together and make every day feel like a joy and a celebration, because it isn't a film about cancer or a film about a woman who dies. It's a story about a very real, complex, messy family, and it's set at Christmas time.
Big family, June.
My gorgeous daughters.
So lovely they can all be here for you.
This is the most real Christmas film I've ever seen. It's not all science fiction or an elf coming out of the North Pole. Well, you know what I mean. It's not a rom-com. This is Christmas that all of us will know somebody in that film. I actually think that everybody in the film, it's their greatest performances. I really, really do. It's quite outstanding.
Oh, that's such a lovely thing to say.
Also,
Thank
the
you.
children in it.
Yes.
How did you get babies that... Are you all related? Actually, are you and Andrea really sisters in real life?
Well, I feel like I do feel like Andrea Riseborough and I are sisters in real life. She does feel like that to me, because I've actually just worked with her 3 times in a row. We did Lee together, and then a show called The Regime for HBO, and then went almost straight into Goodbye June. So she holds an extremely special place in my heart, and playing against her, opposite her, as these 2 sisters who haven't spoken for several years and suddenly have to come together at Christmas because they are about to have to process the impending loss of the matriarch. You know, playing out that tension and distance between the 2 of them was really, really challenging. And for me, as the person directing him, and I still can't quite believe that I was able to do that. And it wasn't the plan that I was going to direct the film.
It wasn't planned?
No. So the film is written by my son, Joe, who is now 21, and he started writing it when he was 19 years old. And he had gotten a place on a screenwriting course at the National Film and Television School. And the assignment across this intense 6 months was to write a screenplay. And now Joe had always shown a real passion for writing and had always been very good at it at school, not just in homework style, but plays, poetry, monologues, etc. So it didn't surprise me that that became a significant part of his own creativity, but that doesn't necessarily translate to being able to actually write a script.
It's beautifully written.
But he did it, and he came to me at the end of the course and said, look, I've written this thing, and would you read it? And he just wanted some feedback from me as his mum, and I immediately said, look, I think this could be a film. And he was like, what are you talking about? Don't be ridiculous. And I just encouraged him to finish it. He still had about 20 pages to go. And once it was complete and he'd gone through various different drafts and got very good at taking notes and feedback and making changes along the way, it felt so present in my life because I'd seen him and worked alongside him going through that process that I was going to produce it and play one of the sisters. But we were going to go out to directors. and I just couldn't do it. I suddenly realised I couldn't let it go, and I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity of showing him how to assemble a great group of people to tell his story, and for him to be a part of seeing those characters that he'd created come to life.
What you and he have done, though, is that you've written everybody's story, so everybody's going to see.
You can do it, Gabby. Yes, you can.
My mum died only 6 weeks after Christmas, and so this film rings so true and it will do for so many people, and the humour that's around it as well, because there were some very funny times when my mum was dying, and everybody, whenever you say that, people always say, "How?" Yes. My mum was always teasing me, apart from anything else.
Well, that's it, and it mattered enormously that the matriarch was not this perfect person. And sometimes in films, I think we often witness the kind of film version of a reality. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to feel real. I wanted for people to be able to see something of themselves in this story, and perhaps get to a place where it might make audiences feel they can have some of those conversations that are uncomfortable to have, and that typically, certainly in our culture, I think we really aren't good at talking about loss. And, you don't want to think about when that moment might come for you or for your own parents. And in actual fact, I think the way these characters, these sort of messy siblings who are really kind of emotionally flatlining as they're coping with what's going on around them, the way that the matriarch pulls them all together in order to make it okay for her to leave the world at peace. It's extraordinary, and actually it's a gift.
Being part of this family.
Do you all love your nana?
Yeah! It's my biggest adventure.
How on earth did you cast those incredible children?
Well, so for me, in anything in life, children bring the joy.
Absolutely.
Even in the most tragic of situations, children still bring the joy, because they can see that grown-ups' faces might be sad, but actually they're immediately distracted by the packet of crisps they've just been offered, or, the toy kitchen in the corner, or hiding underneath the bed and doing...
the sponge thing that she used to keep her
mouth moist, and doing stickers. I just knew that we needed to find children who were very natural and very comfortable in being around big groups of people, and also just happy to join in. And that was the environment that I tried to create, was one that felt not only inclusive and diverse and respectful, but fun, particularly for those kids. And so they honestly felt like they were on a 35-day play date, and I just turned it all into a game. They never knew when the cameras were rolling. So we, as adult actors, would be acting a scene, and the children would just fold into whatever we were doing.
Wonderful.
And often I would establish props that I wanted them or knew that they would go and be interested in, and quietly we would follow those children and film the conversations they would have. And the way that it worked the best of all was the children called each other only ever in their character names. They only introduced one another to each other in their character names. And I did that because I had 2 5-year-olds, one typically developing 5-year-old and a 5-year-old with Down syndrome. And our 5-year-old with Down syndrome is the most beautiful little boy named Benjamin, and his character on the scripted page was called Benji. And so I thought, okay, so that's straightforward. But then if I'm making it straightforward for the others, I have to make it straightforward for him and for our other 5-year-old, Tybalt, who I still call Tybalt, even though his name is actually Elias. And so I said to the teenagers amongst our group, listen, don't you think it would be really a good idea, just to make it easier for the little ones so they don't get confused, if we just all use character names? And they were like, yeah. So they did. And what it meant was, whenever they were in front of a camera and didn't know that we were rolling, they were calling each other in the names that they knew. So every single exchange was always going to be usable, because
That's brilliant.
they were calling each other in character.
You said you didn't know you were going to direct it, and now you've directed it, and it is an outstanding film. Does this mean there's more? Everybody said we were all waiting for Kate to start directing. Now you've started. Does that mean there's no stopping you? Please say yes.
I mean, yes.
Good.
I
Thank
loved
you.
it. I mean, look, I loved being able to inject some of the things that I myself as an actress have wished to have experienced. I was able to implement those things.
Yeah.
And that was, keeping the actual set itself really simple, collaborating very closely with the crew, being able to bring in crew who I've known for a long time and have formed great relationships with. So good people. You know, it's a tricky industry, the film industry, and sometimes you do come across people who can be slightly challenging. And I just didn't want for that to be the case. I wanted it to feel like a joyful, kind, sensitive working environment that would mean something to those actors, and to create an environment that perhaps made them feel slightly different. You know, when you've got people like Helen Mirren and Tim Spall, you know, veterans of our industry, there was nothing I could have given to them by way of actual direction that would have been new or clever. And I knew that it wouldn't have been, you know, meaningful to have tried to do that. But I did know that I could create a space for them that might have felt different, might have made them feel slightly calmer, more intimate, quieter. And so often I was able to lock off cameras in a fixed position and have absolutely everybody, all our crew, myself included, walk out of the room, close the door, and just leave the actors performing a scene with nobody there. And it made a difference, and Helen did notice that, and she commented on it, and she said, you know, I don't think I've ever come across that before. And so I was very happy for her that she was able to experience something different, because when you're making a film that is has so many people, but is largely set in one hospital room in the corridor immediately outside, you know, you do have to really rely on the performances from those actors to keep the momentum, to keep it going, you know, so that it never feels like you're watching the same thing. It never feels as though you're in a repetitive state emotionally. And also, as you mentioned before, that sense of brevity and the humour mattered enormously, not least because when you are facing something like a loss, odd, slightly humorous things do happen, and you do find yourself thinking, oh my God, why am I laughing? I'm supposed to be feeling sad. And actually, that's also an important part of processing those conversations and being able to face the reality with some degree of togetherness and being connected, and trying to remember to laugh through the moments where you can, even though it's challenging and even though it's sad.
It's a really incredible film. It is a tough watch, but it's also a beautiful watch. And I think it's going to heal a lot of people as well.
I think it's cathartic in some way. And I think that, you know, it's a story as much about life as it is
Absolutely.
about loss, and how a family are pulled closer together because of this one thing that they experience, and because of that one woman, the matriarch, the mother. Yeah. And I do find it very moving, and I've been so close to it from beginning, middle,
a lot also
here at the end.
And the story of your mother dying, you know, so it's all of it is all, and you put it out there for us all.
It was almost impossible to detach, even though it's a fictional story and it's a fictional family. You know, my son, when he wrote it, he really remembered being a teenager when my own mum passed away, and that we were all in that space because we all came from that one woman and we were all there for her. And so that became his emotional backdrop. And from there, he created a fictional version of that story. But it was, very hard for me to completely separate from what I had gone through myself and what my siblings had gone through as a family. But in a way, it almost stood me in good stead, because visually I understood what the space needed to look like and feel like, you know, all of those things that, you know, you see and you feel in hospitals. And also finding a way not to make it ever feel stark and lonely and cold, because of the warmth of June and who she is as a person, and also the warmth and love that is given by those phenomenal palliative care workers. I mean, they are such a gift to us all, and it mattered enormously to honour that warmth in the way that the film looks and feels. And I never wanted it to finish. I absolutely loved making this film.
Well, there will be more that you direct. I hope more that Joe will write as well. My
Yes,
word.
me too.
Talking of writing, we always ask all of our guests to write a word in our book, please.
Okay.
And it's going to go to charity. So any word at all. And if you could just sign your name underneath.
Blue biro, and the word is magnificent.
Can I ask why you've chosen magnificent? Or
Because it's for children, and to me, children are magnificent. And I really believe that when we look at our children, we need to imagine them achieving their fullest potential in whatever form in life. And that doesn't mean doing a big fancy job and achieving a level of success or notoriety. It just means being magnificent inside who they are and how they feel about their place within the world amongst their friends, and walking through life with magnificence at their core. And I think it's perfectly possible of all children the world over.
Kate Winslet, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Magic Radio.